The time is now 7 o'clock.
The first 100 days of the regular National Assembly sessions have begun, where lawmakers will be parsing through and voting on bills that will affect us in various ways. This also pertains to Busan, as there are several bills that could very well affect the future of our city. And the situation is urgent, as some experts say that this is the so-called golden time to boost the city's population and economy. 100 days. As we know, they can go by very quickly, and it is now time to act. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Wednesday, September 4th on BEFM, 부산 영어 방송. Good morning, Wavers. I hope you're all doing well. Can you believe it is already Hump Day, the first Wednesday of September? And I know some of you may still be thinking it's really hot, but I definitely feel a little bit of the fall coming real soon. And can you believe Chuseok is really coming up quickly as well? Well, for our main story, we're talking about the National Assembly, the fact that it is in session for 100 days. And experts say that this is the golden time to pass bills that may determine the future of our city. For years, Busan's economy and population have been declining to the extent that it's at risk of losing, this designation that we're so proud of being the second biggest city in South Korea, right? That title. Well, this is because the economic gap between the capital area and Busan, it's been growing, and it is time to pass bills that might bridge this gap. So what bills am I talking about? Well, the biggest one is the Gadokdo Airport. That's a big issue. It is scheduled to open at the end of December 2029, but that is according to plan. That's if everything goes according to those plans. Experts also point to other transportation-related issues, especially putting the railway underground, as that railway would cut directly through the city, hindering development in the surrounding areas. And that involves getting chosen in the government's development pilot zone. That's at the end of the year. So that's going to be a major hurdle too. And the city is also working on 9 strategic industrial development projects spanning finance, culture, and tourism, future mobility, energy, and biohealth, among others. So we'll need to make sure that everything kind of moves smoothly, that everything goes according to schedule. And this is such an important time, the first 100 days of the National Assembly, and we will report to you and give you details as they come along. All right, for now, though, it is now time for our text topic. Are you ready, Wavers? Do you play games? What kind of games? 자, 게임 대해서 이야기를 하고 있는데요. What kind of games do you enjoy playing? Have you played in the past? Whether it's from when you were little or even like maybe last night you played a game. Video games, board games, anything related to games or gaming. 자, 나는 게임을 한다, 안 한다 우선 물어보고요. 아날로그 게임부터 컴퓨터 게임까지. 요즘에 보드 게임이 굉장히 인기 있잖아요. And I am asking about the games that you have played. 게임, 나는 이것까지 해본 적이 있다. And by the way, any games from the past that you really, really enjoyed as a younger child or person? Yes. Share those with our other Wavers as well. You can send in your messages to BFM's live stream live chat on YouTube. Go to that platform, YouTube. So you do have to subscribe and then log in to chat away with our other Wavers. We have on your phone, pound 9050. That's going to cost you 100 won. You can also reach me for free through our Kakao Talk channel. That's the same thing where you search for BEFM or Busan Yongo Bang송 and add us as a friend. You can send in your messages. And the good thing about that way is you can also send in photos. And of course, I can't share the photos with our other listeners, but I can try to describe what I'm seeing. You can listen to us in so many different ways these days. 90.5, 103.3 FM on the radio. Like I said, on our YouTube platform, on our channel. You can watch us in real time, like right now. Or watch us, listen to us later on at your leisure. Also available on the Patbang app. So let's look ahead to our Wednesday morning together. We have Leon coming in for hashtag fact check. We have Jennifer with Skills 101. For our special interview, we're going to talk about something called heatflation. What is this? We talk about inflation and we talk about, so many different economic terms. We're going to talk about heatflation as South Korea grapples with soaring food prices driven by this intense summer heat wave. So that's coming up in hour number 2. And I'll be back with today's headlines. It is now 7:06 and these are today's headlines. Japanese Prime Minister to visit South Korea this week. Outgoing Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will visit Seoul this Friday for talks with President Yoon Suk-yeol. Yoon's office confirmed yesterday as Kishida tries to leave behind a legacy of improving bilateral relations with South Korea. Telegram apologizes for handling of deep-fake porn in South Korea. Telegram has complied with media regulators' request to remove certain deep-fake pornographic content on its platform and has apologized for its response to such crimes. Consumer inflation slows to 41-month low as BOK considers rate cut. South Korea's consumer prices rose 2% in August compared to the same time last year, slowing to the lowest level in nearly 3.5 years. Yoo Ah-in sentenced to 1 year in prison for illegal drug use. Actor Yoo Ah-in has been sentenced to 1 year in prison for using illegal drugs and was immediately taken into custody yesterday. Volkswagen considers closing plant in Germany for first time in history. Volkswagen, also known as VW, is considering shutting down 2 factories in Germany as cost-reducing measures in what could be its first closure ever in its home country. And these are today's headlines. It's now time for Busan Updates. Haley's in the studio with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we have a fun text topic today. I mean, we always do, but
yeah.
extra fun. So do you play games? What kind of games?
Not computer games or video games or even console games because I am terrible. I don't know, my hand-eye coordination or my competitive streak gets ahead of me. So, if I'm not good at it, I don't play. Like not even the Mario and Luigi and the Princess Peach, that
Not
game.
that one?
Like I don't even play that.
Okay.
But I mean, we all start with like 삼육구, right? The the children in Korea.
Really?
It's yeah. And then like 무궁화꽃이 피었습니다.
Sorry.
We played that, and then like 땅 따먹기 Foursquare. It's like seriously, we go like way back. And then my nephew's also in that age group right now.
So what is he into?
He's into like 끝말잇기. Which is when you like end the last letter of the word that you have to start with. Yeah, so we do that because we're in the car a lot, so we just play those car games.
Yes.
And what else? Like, should we play 끝말잇기 with our waivers?
Oh, that might be fun.
Oh, that could be fun.
Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
And then what else do I play? I like betting. Not like illegal betting, but like no, not like gambling, but
Yes.
like I don't know, like during the World Cup or the Olympics,
Oh,
like
all the
if you
time.
it's coffee. It's coffee, like maximum a meal with the family.
Oh, yes,
it's all
yes.
within the legal realm.
spectrum,
But
yes.
yeah. But I like betting.
Yeah, our family.
You guys are like a whole new. You guys are scary.
We can't end a holiday without somebody crying or somebody being somebody being upset at something. But, that's the fun in games, right?
It is,
Being
it is.
competitive. All right, we're going to jump into our first update. There have been changes in the hours of operation for the country's emergency rooms or ERs. And this has also affected a major pediatrics ER in our region.
Right. So here we're talking about the Busan National University Hospital Yangsan branch.
Yes.
Their pediatric hospital or their pediatric, a wing of their pediatric ER is indefinitely shutting down, specifically the child respiratory ER treatments. So the general pediatrics ER will be in operations normally. However, the respiratory wing has taken care of urgent issues like COVID, pertussis, whooping cough, and other respiratory problems. And this because it is the one of the biggest tertiary hospitals in the Pulgyeong region.
Right.
For child patients, this was seen as kind of the final step if their symptoms are serious enough to
Yes.
land them there. So this also means that there has been one professor who's been on duty, who's been in charge during this entire time,
Oh my gosh.
day and night, and this particular professor has, reached their wits' end, understandably. So the city's fire agency also got a notification from the PNU Children's Hospital that it will no longer be able to take respiratory patients.
Yes.
And this affects Busan directly because in the past year, 49% of the Yangsan Hospital's child respiratory patients came from Busan, so about half.
Yes.
So this means that children who have severe respiratory illnesses in Busan, they will have to be redirected to other hospitals as far out as Gyeongbuk or even to the capital area.
I see. This is such an unfortunate loss, though, because for many parents or adults who have children in their lives, like you
Right,
said, this
right.
was kind of like the last stop for serious issues. All right. Next up, let's talk about Telegram. Deep fake porn. That's one of the biggest issues in the country right now. So where does our city's resources and personnel stand on this issue right now?
Well, not just for Busan, but for the entire country,
Yes.
there is a massive shortage of cybercrimes police force, especially compared to how fast this has been spreading.
Yes.
And Busan City, unfortunately, is no exception. Well, according to the National Police Agency data, it shows that there are 10 officers in Busan Police Agency's Digital Sexual Crimes Unit. And that number has stayed the same for the past 5 years. But then if we look at it during the same period, those 5 years, the number of digital sexual crimes has increased by 113%. So it has more than doubled.
Yes.
And by the way, that 5-year period starts in 2019. That's when we had the nth room scandal, the Nbonbang scandal, which was this huge, horrible case in digital sexual crimes.
Yes.
And since then, though, any increase in personnel has been concentrated in Seoul and Gyeonggi. So despite that, the number in Busan has stayed the same and in pretty much anywhere else in the country.
Yes. So that's what's happening on that front. Next up, let's talk about this. Busan City is lowering the threshold for housing loan interest support.
Right. So Busan City is easing up the criteria for which you need to meet to qualify for the 머물자리 loan, which provides the interest rate for rental deposits for young people and newlyweds. So previously, this was open. It is still open to young people between the ages of 19 and 39 who do not own homes. But previously, the income level had to be maximum of 45 million won, 4,500만 won if you're filing as a single. And for married couples, combined income of 80 million.
Yes.
But then that has been eased to 60 million won for singles and 100 million won for a couple. And that is the highest maximum amount for such public loan support for the entire country.
Yes.
So the reason the city explained that this seeks to resolve kind of this reverse discrimination that married couples face because then their combined income was actually lower than what a single person would file.
Right.
And by the way, for those still making 45 million won or less, the city will pay for 2.5% of the interest. So the person would only need to pay about 1% in their interest for housing loans. And this is kind of Busan's response to the criticism that it hasn't been as active in housing support for young people compared to the capital area.
Sure.
So the new criteria will apply to applicants starting this October, and you can visit visit the Busan City Youth Platform website, young.busan.go.kr.
All right. Thanks for letting us know about this, the changes. Let's move on to talk about the city, which is getting ready for Chuseok and the grocery shopping that goes along with Chuseok.
Aren't we all? But Mayor Park Hyung-jun visited a local traditional market yesterday and it checked over the prices, making sure that Busan City's market price stabilization policies are being implemented properly on the scene.
Yes.
So the city has been implementing these price stabilization policies with a joint team that's comprised of officials from local public officials and the National Tax Service. And the city has also increased its supply of fruits, meat, and other popular produce for Chuseok region, Chuseok time.
Yes.
And every district/county, they have a price management team monitoring prices at all times.
Which is really good because we don't want price gouging, people to get ripped off.
Right.
Yes. All right. Lastly, Hwangali is going to be home to a major book festival. It's happening this weekend, I hear.
I'm so excited. This
Yes.
is the 2024 Gwangalli Beach Book Festival. That's this Saturday and Sunday. So the theme this year, what they're trying to do, text hip. So there are many
What is
hip
that?
things, but making reading trendy. Text. So reading is
Right.
hip, which totally is. And that'll be done against the backdrop of the hippest site in all of Busan, Gwangalli.
Right.
I'm just loving this combination of the beach and books. And I'm kind of hoping they have like bean bags on the sand so I can just like plop down and read.
Nice.
Yum. So Suyang District, it hosts the event, but last year it was selected as the site of the Korea Regional Book Festival, and the district is kind of continuing this tradition by holding its own festival this year.
Yes.
And it seeks to create Busan's own unique book culture. The theme this year is Bookist by Busan or by the beach. So Bookist is anyone who is interested in reading, who is involved in the reading or book publishing industry. So it could be publishers, producers, and readers. So we would be the bookists. Right. So the event is organized into kind of a book market. There's a book playground and hands-on experiences. You can make your own bookmarks and things like that. And there will be talks given by authors and various street performances as well. You can also get a customized book recommendation. I know there are like bartenders and baristas who like make customized drinks for you depending on your mood and like what you like. And you can get that at this book festival. So yeah, and you can also create like scents based on your book preferences. So yeah, there are lots of events for readers and maybe aspiring readers who are inching there. So definitely check that out this weekend.
I'm going to go. I want to go on Sunday.
Yeah.
I know it's a TMI, but
let's go together. Let's figure something
I'm
out.
planning my weekend. I'm like,
Yeah. Do you want to go too, 피디님? Should we all go on Sunday?
토요일에 we're busy, so
Her eyes
Saturday.
are empty. Her eyes are just like, sure,
whatever.
sure, yeah.
We meant it though. So, all right. Well, thank you for the updates, Haley. Back to you, the listeners. We're talking about games. So do I have to throw out examples? Okay, back in the day, Bubble. Do you remember that one? Or do you remember Can I not say the names anymore? 이름 얘기해도 되지 않아요? Yes. I don't know. I don't think they're in rotation at the arcades anymore. Galaga? 한국말로는 뭐죠, 그게? 갤러그. In English, it's Galaga. But, you know, the shooting one. Those are some of the favorite arcade games. Do you guys remember that game, too? Is it called Skee Ball? The one you roll, and then it pops into, like 50 points, 30 points. Do you guys know? You guys have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, well, you know, there are many, fun arcade games. It says Skee Ball. I think it's called Skee Ball, but there are lots of games out there. So that's what we're... No, it's not because I'm of a different generation. It's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. 문화 차이예요. So 게임 대해서 얘기하고 있으니까 let me know about all the games that you enjoy that you've played. And here's your traffic and weather. It is now time for your traffic report. It's now 7:19 on the dot. Okay, it is slow from Manduk Tunnel number 2 to the Manduk intersection right now. It's also backed up on Pyeongno going out of the city around the Wondong interchange. Also congestion from Hwangyang Tunnel to the Dongso overpass, the Hwangyang ramp. As for the weather, it is currently 23 degrees under clear skies. However, the daytime high, the forecast is going to go up to 31 degrees, slightly warmer than yesterday. It's going to be nice and sunny today. Looking at the nationwide weather, another summer-like September day in store for you today. The daytime high forecast at 33 degrees in some southern and Chungcheong regions. Jeju will see rain in the afternoon. This was your traffic and weather.
Are you an early bird? Are you up to date on the news? Are you a trendsetter? For all of the biggest issues from Busan to the world and useful information you need, right here on Morning Wave in Busan.
It is now time for News Digest. So we're going to dive into our first bit of news with Haley. We're going to switch gears and talk about the pension system. There are millions who are nearing their retirement age, that, age where you're going to draw from your pension, but have not yet met the minimal payment period to receive their pension.
Right. So this is according to the National Pension Corporation's data, showing that there are over 2 million people who are in their 50s, so they're really getting there, who have not met their minimum requirement period for pension subscription. And this raises issues that it could lead to these blind spots in welfare, potentially creating senior poverty. So according to the pension data released by Democratic Party lawmaker Jeon Jin-suk, there are 6.7 million pension subscribers who are currently in their 50s, and that's as of June of this year. But looking at how long they've paid into the pension fund, there are over 2 million people who have paid into it for less than 10 years.
Yes.
And that's the magic number for the pension, because you need to have paid into the pension for 10 years or 120 months, because if that's how much you have needed to pay into it to get the money after you reach the age of retirement, or
Right.
after 60. So if you don't reach the 10-year threshold by the time you are 6 years old, then basically the pension fund gives back what you have paid plus a small interest in a lump sum payment. So you don't get the monthly pension payment. So that means that after you reach retirement age, you would go without a crucial source of income in your post-retirement age.
Yes.
So for those who have not been able to pay into the pension for over 10 years, well, it's likely people who have not made enough, that they have not had full-time jobs where their employer also chips into the pension fund, or are self-employed, or are business owners whose incomes have not been enough for them to pay the bills and pay into the pension fund.
I see. And the government's pension reform may actually negatively affect them.
Right, because although we don't have the final version yet, the
Yes.
gist of the government's pension reform has been that the older generation will pay more into the fund. Basically, their rate of increase will be higher compared to the younger generation, kind of trying to bridge that perceived sense of unfairness between
Yes.
generations. However, this could negatively affect especially people who are like 57, 58, 59, who are right at the threshold of reaching that 60-year mark. Because if we're kind of taking that assumption that these individuals who have not paid into the pension as much
Yes.
are stretched thin economically, then that higher rate of increase, adding, 10,000 won, 20,000 won to their pension bill might discourage them from paying at all, or just deter them from paying. So once again, the plan is to increase the senior group's pension contribution by 1% every year, as opposed to the younger person's 0.5% increase. Well, that's actually unprecedented. No one in the world does that. So some experts are skeptical about this and are concerned that this may only trigger further generational divides within society.
Yes, indeed. All right, for our next story, it's kind of linked to our text topic. Yes, so we're going to talk about gambling and gaming. We are only talking about the gaming for our text topic, which has shown a distinctive regional pattern as of late.
Right. So we're talking about, fun, healthy,
Yes.
legal gaming,
Yes.
but turning to things that are in the gray area or potentially illegal. Adult gaming, gambling at adult PC rooms, they've been increasing exponentially in rural areas.
okay.
And this is according to the Interior and Safety Ministry data on business approvals. There are 278 new gaming or arcade rooms that have been approved last year. The highest figure was in Gyeonggi and in rural Gyeonggi, followed by Gyeongbuk, Gwangju, Seoul, Chungnam, and Busan in that
Yes.
order. But for specific sites or districts or cities, Ansong, Gumi, Gwangju, Gwangsan-gu, and Bukgu regions and Jeonju were in the top 4. So these gaming rooms and PC rooms, they show a very clear pattern of increase in rural areas as opposed to larger cities.
Okay.
And by the way, this isn't sheer numbers. And, Ansong, as opposed to like Seoul or Busan, has a far smaller population. So that's
True.
definitely significant in these areas.
Okay.
And here's the thing. Most of these newly approved PC rooms are adult only. So, right, so we didn't really know that was a thing, but
Right.
we're used to like PC rooms that are very crowded with teenagers
Yes,
playing
yes.
games. So then there are adult only PC rooms that will only provide games like Hwatu, like Kostop, like online Kostop and poker.
okay,
So more
okay.
gambling games as opposed to like active shooter games or things like that. And that's according to industry insiders. And at the same time, many of these establishments then also serve as a front for illegal gambling.
Yes, yes. So who are these possibly illegal, businesses catering to?
Likely people in farming or fishing communities, especially judging by where they've been popping up. So the thing about the agriculture and the fisheries industries is that they're seasonal. There is a very clear off season.
Yes, yes.
So what are you going to be doing? So you need to find a way to entertain yourself during the off season.
Yes.
But then add to the fact that you do live in a rural area, then there isn't much to do in terms of entertainment that we might see in larger cities. So that's why there's kind of a gap there that's been filled with potentially illegal or gray area entertainment. So in fact, there was a case earlier this month, a suspected arsonist who set fire to an adult gaming room in Yeongam, and he also died himself, was a Chinese national in his 60s. So that leads to another potentially large group, migrant workers who also don't have their own community. If you're in a rural area,
Sure.
then they're lacking entertainment as well. So industry insiders say that there's actually an increase of foreign nationals, many of them Chinese and Russian nationals, who enter South Korea with the intention of opening up these gaming rooms as a potential
really?
business prospect as and targeting their own nationals.
Very interesting. Not on a great level,
Right.
but to learn about these types of new areas that these gaming rooms are popping up in. But next, this is important. This is going to affect pretty much everyone. So the government has decided to give the general public the day off for Armed Forces Day this year.
Right. So this next month, Tuesday,
Yes.
October 1st, is Armed Forces Day, 국군의 날, and the government is going to designate a temporary holiday, or it has designated a temporary holiday, with the cabinet passing the motion. It'll be signed off by the president. So this is upon the decision that there's a need for this extra holiday to boost morale amongst the soldiers and also to encourage spending, because longer holiday, then longer time to spend. And of course, we have the National Foundation Day holiday
Yes.
coming up in just a couple days after that. So if you use your vacation days strategically, you could potentially have like up to a week off.
Can you imagine? Both of us were like, hey, no.
Right.
No, we
Who,
can't.
who's going to fill the airwaves?
No.
We'll
For our
be
last
here.
story, we're going to go to the International Criminal Court. This arrest warrant out for Vladimir Putin. Apparently, he visited Mongolia, which is party to the ICC, but no arrest.
He was, welcomed in this grand manner.
Yes.
So, parade, no handcuffs. So Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in Mongolia late Monday night local time.
Yes.
He met with the Mongolian president and went to a war memorial ceremony where former Soviet Union and Mongolian soldiers fought off Japan.
Yes.
So he was welcomed in this grand military ceremony, and the government of Mongolia made no indication that he was at risk of arrest. So here's the thing.
Yes.
The ICC, the International Criminal Court, has put up an arrest warrant on Putin for forced migration of Ukrainian children.
Okay.
And Mongolia is one of the signatories of the Rome Statute that created the ICC. And actually, one of the judges of the criminal court is Mongolian. So it does not bode well for at least that particular judge.
Yes.
Many groups, including Amnesty International of Mongolia, said that Putin is a fugitive from justice. And Ukraine's foreign ministry said that this is a major blow to the ICC and the criminal justice system. And Ukraine said that it'll work with the member nations so that Mongolia pays for its action.
Yes.
And it's been once again met with a series of criticism from the international community, including the European Commission, which urged Mongolia once again to meet its obligation to the international community.
Yes. And so while we're on the topic of Russia, what's the situation on the war front?
Right. So a Russian missile has struck the Ukrainian city of Poltava, killing 51 people and injuring over 200. So this makes it the deadliest single attack on a Ukrainian town or city this year. And one of the buildings that was hit was a military training institute as well as a nearby hospital. So to this end, Russia claims that it hit a military parade that was going on in the institute. Ukraine denies that. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has asked the West for more air defense systems and long-range missiles. And the U.S. has said more military aid would be sent to Kyiv in the coming weeks.
I see. Well, thank you for going over all the news items. We'll check in with you in hour number 2. Thank you, Haley.
See you in a bit.
And with that, we're ready for our first song break for this Wednesday morning. So here it is. This is Kings and Queens by Ava Max.
If all of the kings had their queens on the throne, we would pop champagne and raise a toast to all of the queens who are fighting alone. Baby, you're not dancing on your own. Can't live without me, you wanna, but you can't, nah. Think it's funny, but honey, can't run the show on your own. I can feel my body shake, there's only so much I can take. I'll show you how a real queen behaves. No damsel in distress, don't need to save me. Once I stop breathing fire, you can't take me. And you might think I'm weak without a sword, but if I had one, it'd be bigger than yours. If all of the kings had their queens on the throne, we would pop champagne and raise a toast to all of the queens who are fighting alone. Baby, you're not dancing on your own. Disobey me, then baby, it's off with your head. Gonna change it and make it a world you won't forget. No damsel in distress, don't need to save me. Once I stop breathing fire, you can't take me. And you might think I'm weak without a sword, but I'm stronger than I ever was before. If all the kings had their queens on the throne, we would pop champagne and raise a toast to all of the queens who are fighting alone. Baby, you're not dancing
Welcome back, everybody. It's now 7:33. And so we have been talking about the number of bills and policies needed to boost Busan's status, both economically and for, of course, our population. We discussed the city's agenda and the relevant bills to aid our economy and development, such as the Gadokdo Airport. But another crucial issue is improving internal conditions pertaining to the quality of living for the people here in our lovely city. Busan City is going to pick up speed on the vision of the 15-minute city. This was a major campaign pledge of the mayor, which centers on having the necessary facilities and infrastructure within a 15-minute sphere of one's neighborhood. And the overall goal is to turn Busan into the second capital city, or the capital of the southern region. But this does not happen automatically. It requires work from not only the city, its city council, but also academia, business leaders, and civic society. That means you and me included. All right, so now we're going to get to our text topic. Do you play games? What kind of games do you play? Whether they're, video board, PC, mind games. Do you play mind games? Like, for example, you know what I forgot that I really am into? Do you know that game Wordle? Does anybody know? Yes, some of you do. It's basically it's letters and you make words with certain letters, and I love playing it. It is an English game, but for those of you who are learning English, I highly recommend it. It's good for you to keep your spelling fresh and to learn new words as well. And then for math, definitely, the math, is it called Sudoku, the numbers game? I like it when there are barely any numbers on the grid. And I know it's like painful, but it's like the feeling of elation that you feel after you play that game and you figure out all the numbers. It's kind of pretty amazing. And some of you are talking about some really, really old games. See, Lee Kelly name, he remembers Skee Ball, yeah? And also Space Invaders is something that he mentioned. And then looking at our other games that are mentioned here, we have things like Pictionary and charades. Oh, charades is one of my favorite. We have to have a get-together to play all these games in person one of these days. I'll be back with our hot clip for today. For today's hot clip, can you imagine that you sign up for this really, really long cruise, 3.5 years of a non-stop global voyage, and then you get stuck? Well, let's listen to the clip from Good Morning America first.
Good morning again, Michael. So a spot on the ship is a serious investment because this is where the guests are going to be living for years. But this is really off to a sputtering start. They have been locked at the harbor in Ireland for months, with passengers waiting night after night in hotels.
This morning, a globe-trotting 3.5-year dream cruise still stuck in the harbor. The Villa V Odyssey, now 3 months past its original launch date, undergoing maintenance in Northern Ireland and stranding some passengers there too.
It's cold. It's windy. It's damp. It usually rains.
The cruise is advertised to visit 475 destinations in 147 countries. The price to purchase an all-inclusive cabin begins at around $100,000 or more, plus a monthly fee for at least 15 years.
We intend to stay on for the long haul, but who knows how we feel after a year.
Some passengers sold their homes to live on board, and many of them have been in Belfast since May, waiting to finally set sail. They are allowed on the ship during the day, but they can't stay overnight. The company helping plan trips for those who want to travel, even booking hotel rooms for others who have to stay in Belfast, like Holly Hennessy, who can't fly around easily because her cat is with her.
I've moved 5 times, different accommodations.
The CEO says the ship is 30 years old and it had been out of commission. It made the trip to Belfast on its own power, but they then found a slew of issues.
The rudder stocks took 6 weeks to get done. And now we're dealing with a couple other things. But overall, I think 3 months is actually not that bad given the circumstances.
Lynette's very happy. We're on the ship.
Lynette Kanan and Johan Bowden have been documenting the experience online.
Hopefully by next weekend,
Yeah,
we'll
I
be
hope so.
floating away and saying goodbye to Belfast.
And the CEO does say the ship repairs are in their final stages, so it should finally get to launch next week, guys.
So once again, the minimum price for this cruise, $100,000, and it goes up to $900,000. They've been stuck for 3 months. So hopefully, as you heard in the clip, they'll be able to launch and go around the world because it's one of those really fancy residence cruise. So that was your hot clip for today.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
It is time for us to check in with Leon for hashtag fact check. Good morning.
Good morning, Catherine.
So we were talking off air about all the games we enjoy.
Yes.
Yes. So
You and I are on the same page.
Oh yeah, I can tell. Leon is gonna be such a fun person to go up against in a game. So what kind of games do you enjoy?
So just this past weekend, I went on a 방탈출. It's what do you call it? Room
Escape room.
Escape room.
Yes.
I was actually surprised because I was in the U.S. this past summer and they actually have their over there too.
Oh yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, they have 방탈출 in America too now. I thought it was a very Korean thing. But yeah, that's basically the most fun game I enjoyed.
Did you figure out the whole
We
puzzle?
did.
Yeah.
We did exit the room, and it was my first time. I'm very bad with scary themes.
Okay.
Like 공포 테마.
Uh-huh.
And the only room that was available was 공포 테마, and it was like there's like star ratings for
Yes.
like the how hard it is, how scary it is.
Yeah.
And the 공포 level was 5 stars out of 5, and I was just like. I can't. Can I do it? And the owner was using professional language because there's something called 깜놀. 깜놀 없어요. I was like, what is 깜놀? And he was like,
explain.
He was like, oh, it's just like the young kids say like something popping out. They don't have it.
They don't have it,
it's
so
okay.
it's okay. It's not that scary.
So it wasn't that scary. It was just gory. The music was something that you hear like in like scary movies, like saucy. It was like eerie music. But I was able to fight through the fear and get the clues.
And you figured it out?
Yeah.
Yay! Good for you.
Have you been to?
I've been to
any
방탈출
방탈출?
before, and then I was telling you off air, the whole laser tag. That was so competitive. I just went. They have one in Gwangalli for people in Busan. It was like, especially for the people who have been to the military, it'll be good for people who have experience, like holding like heavy guns.
Right.
My
They're
arm
actually
was
pretty
sore.
heavy, right?
Yeah, they were really sore.
Yeah.
They put a shock watch on you. We paid extra. I don't know why we paid extra to get pain.
I can't believe you have to pay extra.
We paid
for that.
extra for the shock watch.
Right.
And
You
so
guys
every time we
mean
got
it.
shot,
Right,
I got
right.
shot a lot
Yes.
by my own family. And like, it shocks you, so it's kind of painful.
Right. So were you guys going against
Each other. They put you on different teams for every game.
Okay, but you were teamed up with other people as well. other
Yes,
guests.
they were like 10 on 10.
Oh,
We were like rolling on the floor.
wow.
People were serious.
But it's pretty dark in the room, right? So don't
It's
you guys
dark,
bump into each other and isn't
but
it
not
like
that
a chaos?
dark. It's not that dark.
It's not that dark.
And by the way, for those of you who are interested, they have in English and Korean, like they explain everything. So it was really, really
the
fun.
workers there explain in
Yeah,
English too?
right.
Oh, it's pretty intense.
It was intense.
I'm going to
But
check that out because
I have bruises. I had bruises.
The funny thing, I went with my husband and my in-laws families. My brother-in-law got a huge bruise on his forehead.
Oh, from
he was like
방탈출?
running away. No, from the laser tag.
from the laser
He was running away and he just smashed into
Oh,
the wall.
no. Oh
And I
my
was like, "You're
gosh.
too serious about this.
Yes,
Just
yes.
relax."
Oh, competitive. Oh, I got to go up against Leon's family. All right.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today for hashtag fact check?
Okay, so today I want to talk about this intriguing phenomenon called deja vu.
Oh.
We've experienced it all, right?
Yes.
So first off, do you know what the language, what that word exactly means?
Well, I know it's French.
It's French, yes.
Yes.
Deja vu.
And then in Korean, they call it deja vu.
Deja vu, deja vu.
Deja vu, right? Deja vu, right? So we say deja vu.
Right.
Something like remember again. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Something
right?
like already seen.
Already seen.
Already
Okay, okay,
seen.
yes.
So it is this strange feeling that something what's happening right now has already happened before, even though you kind of know it hasn't. It can't possibly be. So I want to talk about the truth behind this mysterious sensation of deja vu. I mean, many people think it's like a supernatural ability, or where we have like foresight into the future.
Yes.
Or is there actually a scientific explanation to deja vu?
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So what do you have deja vus these days, or have you had experiences?
I've had feelings in the past where I feel like, haven't I been here before?
Like, so places.
There are places, and I'm like, I could have sworn I've been here before.
Oh,
or like,
okay.
I could have sworn I've met this person at the same place. But then you kind of think like, oh, it's probably nothing. Like, what's wrong with me today? Or like,
I see.
is it like just like, it's a brain fart, cobwebs? I don't know. Yeah.
That
So
was like my experience too for me. It was like a sequence of events. Like I would say something and then the person would say something. I was like, oh my gosh, I predicted that. Even though I didn't really. I knew that was coming. That's my version of the deja vu.
Okay.
So let's talk about, is it a psychic gift or not? So according to Dr. Anne Hasselmo, who's a cognitive neuroscientist at MIT, she says deja vu is not related to any supernatural forces or psychic abilities. It's just closely tied to how our brain processes memories. So here is how it works. Our brain has two main functions when it comes to memories. One, it helps us recognize things as familiar, while the other helps us remember specific details about those things that we are familiar with. So deja vu occurs when there's kind of a glitch or kind of like a mismatch between these two functions. So for example, you might come across a situation that feels strangely familiar, but you can't quite place like why it feels familiar. Like, why do I feel familiar with this? So this sense of familiarity without a clear memory is what creates this feeling of deja vu.
I see.
So rather than being a sign of something supernatural, it's actually a result of how our brain processes and sometimes mixes up our memories. So basically, it's a false sense of familiarity that makes you feel like you're having a deja vu.
That's such a good explanation, but it makes sense.
Right.
Yes. So it's like the situations where if something feels familiar,
some aspect of the situation you're in,
and then we kind of think in our head like, oh, haven't I done this before? But it's not really.
Right. And then we are like so sure of it sometimes, right?
And then like oftentimes we've like kind of like, I don't know, like deja vu, it doesn't last that long. It's kind of like a momentary thing, is it not?
For me, it only lasted like 5 seconds at max, right? And then it's just gone. So basically, there's an interesting explanation to this. There's like a fact-checking system in your brain that restores reality. So according to Chris Mullen, who's a deja vu researcher, there's a second system in your brain which supervises what goes on the temporal lobe. It's been described as a fact-checking system which helps you realize you are mistaken, and it kind of ends the deja vu. It helps you realize that make you back to reality, like you never experienced this before. So for most people, it's a rare and like this fleeting feeling, but in rare cases, there have been cases where deja vu has been a serious problem. There was actually one incident in the UK where a woman felt deja vus for the whole day-long deja vus.
That would be scary. That's like
she
Inception.
was really scared. There was actually an interview, and she would stay home when the deja vu feeling would start to come.
Yes.
Because the feeling would go on for hours.
Yes.
She discovered that her experience was related to a type of epilepsy. It's called a temporal lobe epilepsy, and she was able to get treatment. And
good for her.
That feeling stopped. But
I can't imagine feeling like even the 5 minute, it feels kind of like offsetting.
Yes.
But having it for like all day, that feeling.
Yeah.
So what are the types of situation, where we feel this deja vu? Like, are there some common threads?
Yes. Well, there is this myth that, we feel deja vus most often in high stress situation. It kind of stems from the idea that stress affects how we remember things and how we perceive the world. But research from the American Psychological Association has found that the experience of deja vu, the feeling that you've already lived lived that moment can happen in many different situations, not just when you're stressed. So according to Dr. David R.H. Whittaker, who's a psychologist, deja vu is actually more connected to how, again, our brain processes memories than to how stressed we are.
Yes.
So in other words, it's more about our brain managing, interpreting information rather than how stressed you are.
So this feeling of deja vu, do certain people like feel it more often, or does this happen kind of like across the board? So is it rare? Is it not?
Well, research by Dr. Veronique Coelho, who's a neuropsychologist, indicates that deja vu is a very common experience throughout. Studies suggest that approximately up to 80% of people have reported experiencing deja vu at least once in their lives, while some individuals may only experience it a few times. Others may encounter it more frequently.
Okay.
But this is an interesting statistics. Deja vu were found to be more common among younger adults, particularly those between the ages of 15 and 25.
Oh.
The frequency drops to around half of that rate by the time you reach 40 or 50.
Okay.
And when you're in 60s, you're lucky to have just one deja vu even in a year. And I think this makes sense because I don't remember the latest deja vu that I had, but I know when I was young, I kept on telling people, this is deja vu, but I've been doing that less these days.
Yes, yes. Well, there's also this belief that deja vu might not necessarily mean that, we've actually lived through like another life or experienced something, but I don't know. Some people think, is it a glimpse into the future?
Yeah, so I've actually thought about that too. To no surprise, again, it's a glitch in the brain that makes us believe that.
Yes.
Brain imaging studies show that during deja vu, there's no unusual activity in the brain associated with us trying to predict future events.
Yes.
The activities are centered around, again, memory and recognition processes. Here's an interesting thing, though. Have you ever had the experience where you know this person or you know this certain word, but all of a sudden it feels so unfamiliar?
Yes.
I
have
had that too, right?
Like I looked at a
person
word
or word.
I've had that happen a couple times with words, not frequently, but like I look at the word and it like for some reason the spelling looks so foreign. But it
me
wasn't
too.
a difficult word.
Right,
And I was
right,
like,
right.
Why am I looking at this word like it's like for the first time?
Yeah, and then you would read it again and
and I'm
again and
like,
again.
Is the spelling off? What's wrong with me? I have felt that.
I've also had that experiences with words, but also with with my father, who I know. But all of a sudden, I was like, "You look like a foreigner, like a not Korean person." Like some features of his face was looking very unfamiliar. I was like, "Why am I thinking like this?" Because I see my dad quite often.
Yes, yes.
So as I was doing my research for deja vu, there's actually a phenomenon called opposite of deja vu, which is jamais vu.
Jamais vu.
Jamais vu, which is
what is jamais vu?
Jamais vu, which is the experience of knowing something is familiar and yet feeling strange.
Yes, this one
So-
I've definitely had.
So there's actually a terminology for this, jamais vu, not deja vu.
So can we look at our like roommates every day and say, jamais vu? Do I know you?
I don't know you.
Yes.
Right. So Chris Mullen, who's a deja vu researcher, says
Yes.
that even if you know this feeling of jamais vu, you can induce this feeling by repeating a familiar word constantly until it loses its meaning and it becomes just a sound. So that's kind of like the phenomenon that
Yes.
we're feeling, the jamais vu. So to sum it all up, while deja vu can feel very mysterious and very like, I have supernatural power, it is not a sign that you're seeing the future or that you're reliving that moment. It's a normal part of how our brain works. The next time you remember is just remember your brain is simply doing its best to process and make sense of the world. Even if it occasionally gets a little mixed up, it's trying to catch like what is familiar and what's not.
Right. And I read some interesting comments on our board. Apparently in Korean, deja vu 한국에서는 기시감이라고 하고, I guess jamais vu is called 미시감. I didn't even know there were Korean words.
Oh,
now we know.
That's like really hard words.
Yes.
Thanks for that.
I know. I'm going to forget after this.
기시감, 미시감 was
Yes.
it? Okay.
We're going to forget after the program. But thank you. We'll check in with you next week.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. This was Leon Wish, hashtag fact check. And how about this one? A little bit of magic. 24K Magic by Bruno Mars.
Let's set this party on fire. Players, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. Pop, pop, it's showtime. 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 Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. Oh, they don't know. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Showed up, I'm wearing Cuban links. Yeah. Designer mix. Yeah. Inglewood's finest shoes. Whoop, whoop. Don't look too hard, might hurt yourself. Known to give the color red the blues. I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up. So many pretty girls around me and they're waking up. Keep up. Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jacking. Keep up. Players only. Come on, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. Second verse for the hustlers, gangsters, then your ugly friends. I cannot preach, I cannot preach. I gotta show them how I get it in. First, take your sip, do your dip, spend your money like money. Ooh, ooh, we too fresh. Got to blame it on Jesus. Hashtag blessed. They ain't ready for me. I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up. So many pretty girls around me and they're waking up. Keep up. Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jacking. Keep up. Players only. Come on, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? What you trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. Everywhere I go, they be like, oh, so clear. Everywhere I go, they be like, ooh, so bad. Everywhere I go, they be like.
Your Bridge to the World. BEFM, Busan 영어 방송.
Feeling it.
혹시 지금 운전 중이신가요? 어린이 교통사고 피해자 수는 지난 3년 평균 약 9만 명. 특히 어린이 보호구역 안전 기준이 강화된 이후에도 어린이 보호구역 내 사고는 지속적으로 발생하고 있습니다. 스쿨존에서는 반드시 시속 30km 이하 서행, 스쿨존 내 불법 주정차 금지, 차량 출발 전 앞뒤 좌우 살피는 습관으로 어린이가 안전한 도시를 만듭니다. 참, 운전 중 휴대전화 사용은 모두에게 위험합니다. 우리 모두를 위한 교통안전, 나부터 실천하면 모두가 안전해집니다. 어린이가 안전하게 뛰어놀 수 있는 부산. 아이 키우기 좋은 도시는 우리 모두의 미래이자 희망입니다. 이 캠페인은 어린이가 안전한 부산을 만드는 은행, B&K 부산은행과 함께합니다.
Hola, I am Rafael Salardi, a Peruvian living in Busan for 20 years now. After living in Peru, I fell in love with Korean culture, so I decided to move to Busan. I like feeling the warm sunrise at the beaches in Busan on sunny days. A cup of coffee while looking at the sea in the coffee city Busan reminds me of the Andes Mountains, a famous coffee producer in Peru. The reason why I like Busan more than anything else is the people. Even though I was not good at Korean, everyone treated me with kindness and friendliness. I really appreciate those who are so nice to me. I want to live happily ever after in Busan for a long, long time. Gracias, Busan. Global City Busan, we are all in it together. This campaign was brought to you by BEFM Busan 영어 방송.
지금 방송 광고라는 부메랑을 던져보세요. 소비자를 향해 정확히 날아가는 광고. 힘차게 돌아가는 경제. 부메랑처럼 다시 기업의 이익으로 되돌아오니까요. 방송 광고, 경제에 큰 힘이 됩니다. 부산 방송광고발전협의회.
The time is now 8 o'clock.
Good morning, Dynamic Busan.
Yeah, you're waking up. Time to shake it up. Tell the world good morning and find out what's going on.
Well, hi there, folks. There's everything from comedy to lively chat to music.
Broadcasting from a room about the size of your closet.
All calls are recorded.
What show is this?
Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
I'm sorry, who'd you say you were?
It is now 8 o'clock. This is News Highlights. Japanese Prime Minister to visit South Korea this week. Outgoing Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will visit Seoul this Friday for talks with President Yoon Suk-yeol. Yoon's office confirmed yesterday as Kishida tries to leave behind a legacy of improving bilateral relations with South Korea. The two leaders will look back on the achievement of cooperation between the two countries and discuss ways to further move bilateral, regional, and international cooperation forward. Kishida has announced a decision to give up on re-election as prime minister. During a press conference last week, Yoon said that he aims to maintain cooperation with Japan regardless of who becomes the new prime minister in Japan's upcoming election. Telegram apologizes for handling of deep fake porn in South Korea. Telegram has complied with media regulators' request to remove certain deep fake pornographic content on its platform and has apologized for its response to such crimes, said the Korea Communications Standards Commission, or KCSC. Telegram's East Asia branch representative sent an email to the KCSC confirming that it had removed 25 pieces of sexual exploitation material from its platform. In the meantime, experts at a policy debate at the National Assembly yesterday urged the government to require social media companies to delete deep fake sexual content or face penalties if they do not comply. Consumer inflation slows to 41-month low as BOK considers rate cut. South Korea's consumer prices rose 2% in August compared to the same time last year, slowing to the lowest level in nearly 3.5 years. It was the slowest increase since March 2021 and the fifth consecutive month that the price growth stayed below 3%, according to Statistics Korea yesterday. On the same day, Bank of Korea Governor Lee Chang-yong said that the time had come to sufficiently consider a rate cut as the nation's consumer inflation has cooled. Yoo Ah-in sentenced to 1 year in prison for illegal drug use. Actor Yoo Ah-in has been sentenced to 1 year in prison for using illegal drugs and was immediately taken into custody yesterday. Seoul Central District Court yesterday found the 37-year-old actor, whose actual name is Hong-sik, guilty of violating the Narcotics Control Act for habitual use of propofol, an intravenous anesthetic agent, as well as smoking marijuana. The court said that the defendant's dependence on illegal substances is serious and carries a considerable risk of falling back into his habits again. He was also ordered to complete drug addiction rehabilitation programs. Volkswagen considers closing plant in Germany for first time in history. Volkswagen, or VW, is considering shutting down 2 factories in Germany as cost-reducing measures in what could be its first closure ever in its home country. The manufacturer informed its Works Council of the plans on Monday local time. It may pull back on its promise to protect jobs until 2029, in which case around 20,000 people could lose their jobs, according to estimates by local media. VW's chief executive said that the European automotive industry is in a very demanding and serious situation as it faces struggles in switching from the more profitable diesel and gasoline vehicles to cleaner but less profitable electric vehicles, as well as competition from China. And this was News Highlights. It's that time. Wagga Wagga time.
It is.
So Haley's back, and I have to say, it's been so interesting
I can
in the
just
chat
rip
room.
up my script and we can talk about what's been going on in the chat room for the next 15 minutes.
I mean, it's just like really, really lively, we'll say.
I love it.
Yes.
Love it.
All right, so let's get into our first issue. One of the most controversial issues in politics is this rumor or claim that the president may be prepping to impose martial law. So what is behind this?
Right, and why in 2024?
Yes.
How is this happening? Well, so martial law is 계엄령, and the Democratic Party and its chair, Lee Jae-myung, they've been floating the claim that the president may be preparing to declare martial law. So they're not, it's a very vague wording, but that vagueness is important because they're not saying that he is outright, but that there's a possibility, and they've received reports of possible signs, but they have yet to release said signs. So what happened, how this began is that a prominent Democratic Party's member, Kim Min-seok, back last month mentioned this, that they see that he has evidence to believe that the rate at which the administration has been conducting some of its actions is that they are preparing to declare martial law. So for example, the party points to the appointment of the presidential security team's head, Kim Yong-hyun, as the defense secretary. Also that the president has been using the prosecution's authority to allegedly oppress opposition leaders.
I see.
And a spokesperson for the DP said that if there is even a 0.1% possibility that the president may utilize military powers to do anything, it is the party's responsibility to stop it. So it seems that they're sending out warning signs, and other members of the party pointed to there having been retroactive evidence of the Park Geun-hye administration looking into the possibility of martial law, or at least drawing up reports about it during the protest that called for her impeachment.
Yes.
And then finally, its chair, Lee Jae-myung, threw kind of fuel to the flame when he outright made these accusations or possible accusations during his public meeting with the People Power Party's counterpart, Han Dong-hun.
Yes. But the ruling party and the presidential office, they have refuted all of this.
Absolutely. So Han said that without evidence, this is just an attempt to cause national chaos and disorder. And the PPP's floor leader also said that this is a fake news campaign that's not only rude, but takes the country into great confusion and disorder.
Yes.
So the floor leader, Chu Kyung-ho, brought up Lee Jae-myung's ongoing trial trials and kind of hitting back, saying that Lee must be blinded by the fact that his court ruling is coming up if it's going to go that much of a desperate measure. And as for the presidential office, they said that such dissipation of rumors is a propaganda similar to the Nazi Party or to the Stalin era.
Yes.
And the presidential spokeswoman Jung Hae-jeon said that if there's no evidence, then Lee Jae-myung needs to wager his party chairmanship to back it up.
Oh, goodness. So
Yeah.
that's one of the hot issues right now, hence
Absolutely.
we're covering it. Next, a public housing apartment is under fire for its no smoking notice. Oh.
So, I mean, in the summertime, especially when we have the windows open, we're enjoying, especially now, the nice breeze.
Yes.
And this has happened to me. A smell wafts into your bedroom. And it's a cigarette smell. And I live on the 11th floor, so I can only assume someone's smoking in their home. I mean, apartment or public community housing smoking is always controversial if there are cigarette butts, and that's all littering is a big issue. So a letter that's been written by the Tenants Association at a Seoul area public LH housing, it's under controversy. So the letter basically says, don't litter cigarette butts on the ground. Completely reasonable, and he would be 100% in the right, except it's not what he said, but how he said it.
Okay, so that's an
Isn't
actual
that
note?
always the problem?
That's posted?
the letter that's
Okay.
been posted. It says, he writes, I'm poor. 저는 거지입니다. So it's called like poor, beggar. Anyways, I have no money and no home. Thus, I came here with the help of the state. We are all in the same situation, referring to everybody else in public housing.
Okay.
I'm trying to save on apartment maintenance costs for all of us, but because some residents litter cigarette butts, we need to hire cleaning staff, which costs money. So in pleading with the residents not to litter so they can save on cleaning costs, he says, if you came here because you don't have a home, then you are a beggar. Once again, 거지. Act like one. So the actual phrasing is 거지면 거지답게 행동하세요.
That's what he or she wrote?
He or she wrote that. So basically, they're telling the other residents to act in accordance with your social status, which is... So he says, save money if, don't be a beggar who's selfish. That's shameful. So, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot to unfold there.
Get it. I get the intent behind the letter of we shouldn't, it doesn't matter if you're Jeff Bezos or if you live in public, don't litter. That's
of course
that's inconsiderate and also illegal. But this wording, poor beggar, definitely under controversy. That is basically attacking not only people who littered, but everyone who lives in public housing.
Exactly.
And people could be there for very, very different reasons.
And there should be no shame.
Absolutely
behind
not.
that,
Absolutely not.
There are circumstances.
Right. I mean, some people litter, but some people are also hardworking people. Those two also not mutually exclusive.
Yes.
And here's the thing. To a larger societal picture, there have been cases of children jokingly, but that's malintentioned, calling kids who live in public housing like poor or looking down at them because, you live in public housing.
Yes.
So as adults, we shouldn't perpetuate this behavior because children do learn from their actions.
Yes.
However, others did in the comments come to his defense saying, that people shouldn't litter, but also let's attack that particular behavior, not one's socioeconomic status.
Oh, yes. And I have much to say about...
Oh, my God, I know.
I always have trouble pinpointing which neighbor is it.
Right.
Because you don't know, because, like smoke and smells and odors, they kind of waft through the
I know
air.
exactly which neighbor it is.
Oh, you really? Mm-hmm. I always try to figure it out. I have no idea who it is.
I know. 천 땡땡땡 호 아저씨. I know.
All right. Bad news for music fans. Apparently, Adele, she's taking a prolonged break from music.
As her lyric goes, when will I see you again?
Well,
she answers, not for an incredibly long time. And that's a direct quote. So Adele told her fans during her Munich performance in Germany that she will be not seeing them for an incredibly long time.
Okay.
Not ending it now. She still has 10 shows in her Las Vegas residence. But after those 10 shows, she's going to be taking a long, long break. So her Vegas series will run from October 25th to November 23rd. But then after that, she will go into a prolonged hiatus. But she did say this previously back in July that she has no plans to make new music once her Las Vegas residency comes to a close after 2 years. But definitely, sad news for music fans. So on a personal note, she is getting married. She is engaged to Rich Paul, who's a major sports agent. His clientele includes LeBron James.
And his name is not Paul, and we're not calling him Rich. His name is Rich.
It's Rich is his
and
first
his last name is
and Paul, right?
Yeah, just saying.
He is wealthy, but no, we're not.
I'm just saying.
Adele is also wealthy, if not wealthier.
Yes,
so,
yes. So I just
how many
wanted to put that
Grammys
out
does she
there.
have? Yeah.
For our next story, we're going to go to Paris, where the decision to keep the Olympic rings, the 5 rings, permanently on the Eiffel Tower, well, this is kind of controversial. Mixed responses.
Yeah, so Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo, she announced this past weekend that the Olympic rings will stay as a permanent fixture on the Eiffel Tower. So in an interview, she says that she wants the spirit of the celebrations to remain, that she was delighted that the French as well as the world have fallen in love with Paris again. And I think she also, there's a bit of a personal, I told you so, a haha moment, because there had been a lot of skepticism ahead of the Paris Olympics that it was a mistake. People were complaining about it.
The River Seine.
The River
being
Seine.
nasty.
I mean, still is.
She swam in it, though.
Yeah,
to her credit.
and then did she take a decontaminating shower
I don't
afterwards?
know.
Well, even the Paris triathlon had to be postponed for a couple of days because of the water pollution. And this is a direct quote, after 10 years of bashing and telling us that the Olympic Games was going to, I can't say that, Hades. Yeah, H-E-L-L.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but of course, those current rings that you see on our YouTube page, well, those are too heavy to be there permanently because they weigh 30 tons.
30 tons?
I didn't realize that, but I mean, it makes sense because with the rain and they would have to be
math. So
durable.
each ring is 5 tons?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, 6 tons, right?
6 tons.
Yeah.
Oh, 6 tons. Oh,
we're all
bad with the math.
Obviously, we were all mungwa. But she's going to replace it with a lighter replica as soon as possible.
Yes. Well, one of the most vocal critics of the plans is actually the Eiffel family.
Right, because the tower is named after Gustave Eiffel, who is was the architect. So his descendants, who actually have the Association of Descendants of Gustave Eiffel.
Okay.
The president of the association, who's the great-great-grandson of Gustave, said that the Eiffel Tower is not intended as an advertising platform. Right. So the association says, of course, they're delighted about the Olympic rings during the games. They don't think it's appropriate that the tower, which was constructed 135 years ago, symbol of France, by extension, symbol of Paris, France to the world, should carry the symbol of an external organization. Also, permanently. And then, if there are other games or other major events that are held in Paris, they want the tower to reflect that, not, the Olympics forever. And a petition has been launched against the idea as well, but there may not be much that they can do about it because, Paris City Hall owns the tower and it is a majority shareholder in the company that manages it. So whatever they want to do with it, they can.
And I didn't even realize, but the whole Olympic, it's a copyrighted name.
Oh, absolutely.
On TV, I didn't realize until recently.
That's why we say the games.
The games,
right?
And it's
Olympic,
on, they have the asterisk. I was so it is a private entity. So.
It is a private entity, and right.
Interesting. All right, lastly, let's get our Paralympic updates.
We shall. So table tennis going really strong in singles. So get ready. 서수연, 장영진, 차수용, 정영아, and 문성애, both men and women, they've all advanced on to the semifinals. So Korea is guaranteed at least a bronze.
Yay.
And their goal is to get at least 2 golds in table tennis singles. And because table tennis team, I think with 17 delegates, they make up the biggest portion out of Team Korea. And then going to men's sharpshooting. Sharpshooting has had an incredible run in this year's Paralympics. Park Jin-ho won his 2nd gold. And he also set the Paralympics record in R7 men's 50-meter pistol at 454.6 points. He's really making up for what he calls, not my words, but his disappointing run in Tokyo because 3 years ago, he was and has been ranked number 1 in the world, but he missed the gold in Tokyo by 0.1 point. I know. So he really made it up. He has another event coming up, and his goal is to get 3 gold medals in Paris. So yeah, best of luck.
And as they say like second place is sometimes like the most awful, painful place in sports and competition. So, all right. Well, thank you for all the Woggly stories. We'll check in with you tomorrow. Thank you, Haley.
Have a great day.
All right. Now back to you, the listeners, for our updated traffic and weather. It's time for your updated traffic report. Right now, there are multiple accidents to report on. There is a multi-car accident on Eulsukdo Bridge from Sinpyeong to the Myeongji direction. So please be aware of that. You might want to take a detour. There's also an accident on the Gyeongbu Expressway going towards Seoul, right by the Yeongnak interchange. There's backup in the surrounding areas because of this. Also, another multi-car accident involving a bus on Suyonggang Gangbyeondaero from Sunsuchon intersection to the Banyo Agricultural Market. It's being cleared up right now, but it's still causing some backup. There's also a 2-car collision on Gobunlo from Gyeongsang University to the Yeonsan Tunnel right before the tunnel itself. So yes, you might want to be aware of that area as well. So for the weather, it's currently 24 degrees. It's going to go up to 31. It's going to be nice and sunny today. Across the nation, another summer-like September day, daytime high. In some areas, in the southern and Chungcheong areas, it's going to go up to 33, and Jeju's going to see some rain. This was your traffic and weather. All right, let's get to the song 하늘을 달리다 by 허각.
두근거렸지 누군가 나의 뒤를 쫓고 있었고 검은 절벽 끝 더 이상 발 디딜 곳 하나 없었지 자꾸 목이 메여 간절히 네 이름을 되뇌었을 때 귓가에 울리는 그대의 뜨거운 목소리 그게 나의 구원이었어 마른 하늘을 달려 나 그대에게 안길 수만 있으면 내 몸 부서진대도 좋아 서로 너무 태야 가까이 날아 두 다리 모두 녹아내린다고 해도 내 맘 그대 마음속으로 영원토록 달려갈 거야 내가 미웠지 난 결국 이것밖에 안 돼 보였고 오랜 꿈들이 공허한 어린 날의 착각 같았지 울먹임을 참고 난 몰래 네 이름을 속삭였을 때 귓가에 울리는 그대의 뜨거운 목소리 그게 나의 희망이었어 마른 하늘을 달려 나 그대에게 안길 수만 있으면 내 몸 부서진대도 좋아 서로 너무 태야 가까이 날아 두 다리 모두
right, welcome back, everybody. So we've been talking about games. Oh, goodness. It's been so lively. I love these sex topics where it kind of brings you all out of the woodwork. People are chiming in about all the different kinds of games that you have been playing, that you love and enjoy, and a lot of games from the past. So I think some of these games, I won't give names. Some of these game names are going to date some of you. So I don't want to out any of you. But I got a message on our Kakao Talk board, I won't say who mentioned Commodore 64 and Atari. So that will, for a certain generation of people, that will ring a bell. For others, you might be wondering, what in the world is Kat talking about? For those of you, like our producer is shaking her head, pretending to be younger than she is, saying, I don't know, 몰라요, 그 뭐예요? So I don't know. And a lot of games like Tetris. What was it, like the bubble pop or whatever it's called? In Korean, what is it, 보글보글? That has come up several times. Pac-Man, Ms. Pac-Man, all of those games have popped up on our board. You know, what about this one from one of our listeners? Do you guys remember Street Fighter? Do you guys ever play that? Oh, and what was that phrase? All you can? Or what was it? 맨날 뭐 하는 그 멘트가 있었잖아요. The characters. And so, yeah, Street Fighter in whatever language you played, very, very popular. And then what was, you know what 저 이거 꼭 해보고 싶은데 한 번도 못 해본 거 있어요. Is it called DDR? 그거 있잖아요. 그 춤? Why are you laughing, PD님? 그거 그 발로 하는 그 춤 그거 저 한 번도 안 해봤어요. Because I wasn't in Korea when that was like really popular. But when I see like old dramas or like flashbacks in like 그 K-dramas or movies, 맨날 그 DDR 그 뭐 붙잡고 뭐 발 움직이고 하는 거 있잖아요. That I want to try. I've never tried that. So hopefully I can find an arcade that still has that. So anyhow, thanks for taking a walk down memory lane with me. But we got to get to our special interview. All right, this is our special interview. As South Korea grapples with soaring food prices driven by an intense summer heat wave, the phenomenon of heatflation has become a critical issue for both consumers and policymakers. Concerns are rising over how these price hikes will affect the fast approaching Chuseok holiday. Let's explore the economic implications of heatflation. So this is so important. Let's speak to our expert at hand, Professor Yang Jun-seok. He's a professor of economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Hi, Professor. How are you?
Oh, hi. Fine, thank you.
Yes. So first of all, maybe you can help us understand the concept of heatflation. What does this mean, and how does this differ from traditional inflationary pressures on food prices?
Okay, well, it's a it's among the long list of catchy phrases now. Cost plus inflation. So we had skimpflation, where you had less amount per package, agflation for agricultural inflation, ecoflation for the ecology and inflation. Heatflation is inflation due to weather being too hot, obviously, and it leads to reduced agricultural output, though it could also cover other price increases due to weather, perhaps something like electricity if you're using too much air conditioning. Now, inflation hasn't been that big a problem since about 1980, but since the post-pandemic and invasion of Russia into the Ukraine, we've had inflation that we really haven't seen since about 1980. So people have been quite surprised by inflation, especially this long run inflation, which has now gone for a bit more than 2 years.
Yes.
I think people have gotten in a shock. We haven't seen this for so long, and for younger part of the listeners, they haven't been alive since the last time that we had such high and long run inflation. But at least in terms of economic theory, what's so difficult about heat inflation or a lot of the post-pandemic inflation is that between 2008, between 1980 to the pandemic, what inflation we did have was thought to be demand-based because perhaps there's too much money in the market, or because there has been some fortunate circumstances. People's demand goes up. They want more and they're willing to pay more, so inflation goes up. But with the pandemic, we've seen mostly a supply-based inflation, where supply goes down because, well, the pandemic, the invasion into the Ukraine, and now the heat. So the problem is that with demand induced inflation, we know the solution. It's not exactly easy, but we know what the solution is. That is to cut back on the economy, the contractionary monetary policy with higher interest rates, contractionary fiscal spending, where government spends less. And that usually deals with the problem fairly quickly. But with the supply side inflation, we have to get the supply back up. And with something like agriculture, where sometimes you only have harvest once a year, like what we had with apples last year.
Yes.
It's really difficult to get the supply back up, first of all. And second, a lot of people blame the government for inflation. With the demand side inflation, you can argue that the government had wrong type of policies which overstimulated the economy. But with the supply side inflation, especially for agricultural products, there's not really that much the government can do. I mean, they cannot go up and tell God to lower the temperature.
Yes, that's true. And so when we look at heatflation, and with a Chuseok holiday coming up real soon, Professor, how is this going to affect the food prices?
Okay, well, typically, if you look at monthly data for Korean inflation,
yes,
and for about last 20 or 25 years, what we've seen is that prices go up about a month before, or a month or two before Chuseok, especially food prices, fresh food prices. And then it stabilizes or falls after Chuseok until the Lunar New Year comes around. Then about a month or 2 months before lunar inflation, fresh food prices and prices in general moves up again. And then it goes back down after Lunar New Year's until about a month or 2 months before Chuseok. So we see this every year. But in the last few years, this fluctuation, this volatility has become even higher because we've had so many years where we had very strange weather.
Indeed.
Whether it was too hot, too cold, too much rain, or too little rain. So part of the inflation that we see now is probably the typical inflation that we see before Chuseok. But in the last few years, as I said, the price increase has been really volatile because of the weather involved. And this year, obviously, it was very, very hot.
Right.
But luckily, it's not as bad as perhaps last year when the price rise was really incredible for something like, say, apples. Now, if you look at the inflation numbers for August, which just came out yesterday, inflation in overall, it's actually not that bad. It's for the 12 months, it's only about 2.0%. So we've been worried about inflation being up, but it is now falling back down to more normal levels. In fact, 2.0% is the Bank of Korea's goal for inflation. But remember that inflation is rising of prices. It doesn't necessarily mean that if inflation goes down, prices go back down. It just means that it stops going up or it slows down in the path upwards. And if we look at fresh food prices, then it rose 3.2% from a year ago, so it's much higher than the general inflation. And fresh food rose up by 5.0%, again, over the last year.
Yes.
But if you just look at the month of August, then the numbers are really a bit surprising. Fresh food prices rose 9.6% just in the month of August.
Yes.
Again, again, some of that, maybe about 3-4% of that is what we get usually every year because it's around Chuseok time. But anything on top of that is due to hot weather. Some of the items which prices went up substantially were cabbages, which went up, again, in 1 month, rose by 37.6%, watermelon 31%, lettuce 41%, spinach 62%. Tomatoes 17%, zucchini 48%,
Yes.
and fresh fruit overall by 9.6%. But on the other hand, a bit of a happier news, I guess. Apple and pear prices are at least stabilizing. Again, it's not necessarily falling back, but it is no longer rising at a rapid pace. Apple harvest this year is said to be more or less normal, which is good news since everybody was so concerned about apple prices last year.
What about the areas, the long-term economic consequences of heatflation, especially on South Korea's agricultural sector and the rural communities? Because for the areas that are actually, growing these products, there must be an impact as well.
Right. So if you're lucky enough that your harvest wasn't destroyed, and that's a big if nowadays.
Yes.
You should be able to get higher prices, but I'll get to it in a few minutes on why that may not always be so. But for people whose harvests were destroyed because of the hot weather, obviously they're not going to do very well. So you're going to see a lot more fluctuation in and instability in agricultural household income.
Yes.
Now, I mentioned that even if the prices go up, agricultural households may not be seeing an advantage. And that's because Korea has a very long, complex, and perhaps monopolistic distribution system for agricultural products. So we've seen horror stories where prices at the supermarket are outrageous, but going back to the supply chain to the original farmers, they're not getting very much. So we need to look at the supply chain, the distribution system. But even though it may be long, complex, and inefficient, each one of these are jobs in the rural economy.
Yes.
So the government, in one sense, they do want to get a handle on this to lower agricultural prices, but on the other hand, they want to maintain a lot of jobs for people in the rural areas. So they're a bit conflicted about how seriously they should go after this. But the problem is that we've been telling that the weather has been unusual, but we don't know how quite unusual it's going to be in the future. If what the scientists are saying about global warming and climate change are true, it may be that this so-called unusual weather becomes the usual weather.
That's true. That's what the experts say. So in terms of the rising cost of staple foods, and I think a lot of our listeners were really shocked when you read out those percentages, the increases, Professor. We have Chuseok coming up, and you already mentioned the before and after, the prices, how that might go. So what strategies could households adopt to basically cope with this? Because, things are just much more expensive, it seems. Our incomes are not going up, relatively speaking. Everything is going up except for what they say is our salary.
Yeah, but again, this is what we typically see in Chuseok every year, though not to this extent.
Yes.
And the reason has been mostly that demand for certain agricultural goods go up substantially before Chuseok.
Yes.
Apple being one of them, but still, when you have your ceremony for the ancestors, there are some things that you have to put on the table. So those are the things that usually goes up. But also, we talked about the inefficient aspect of the distribution sector, but also what the government had tried to do when the apple prices and some fruit prices went up was that it tried to provide cheaper options.
Yes.
So they cut tariffs on imported fruits like pineapples, mangoes, avocados, cherries, but it seems that at least for the Korean general public, they don't like replacements all that much. We've seen a lot of people complain about apples in particular, and even though you had cheaper options, perhaps they did not fall into it as neatly as some other countries would have.
Yes.
So in that case, there are very few real options for the government, especially for something like apples, whose harvests only come once a year.
We do have to get to our final question, though, Professor, because people are wondering, we do depend to a certain extent on the government to come up with certain measures to mitigate the effects of, for example, this year it's heatflation, especially on the vulnerable population. So what can the government do? I know you said earlier it's limited. They can't do everything. So what can the government do?
Okay, well, the government can encourage more direct distribution, bypassing the distribution chain and have supermarkets contract directly with farmers. That has been done with some of the larger markets, but it isn't really catching on outside those big markets, partially because I think the distribution sector has things wrapped up in a lot of production areas.
Okay.
Now, some advocates for the poor are looking at foreign countries. What foreign countries do a lot of times is use sophisticated financial derivatives to try to bring prices down using things like futures and options. I don't think that's really possible for Korea because we do not really have an extended market for derivatives in the agricultural sector. And it also sets up vulnerabilities for speculation. And then finally, this is my preferred solution, though it might not be the agricultural sectors, is to liberalize imports of some of these fruits. Now, apples, even though we had it in a very short supply last year, we could not import more apples because they're still under study by Korean FDA to see whether they're safe for not only human consumption, but also for agricultural diseases. That's been taking 8 years. Now, the KFD's defense is that other countries typically also examine agricultural imports for safety for years, comparative years, 7-10 years. But perhaps if we were able to import apples more easily, the prices may not have gone up that high, even though you may be eating European apples rather than Korean apples. But on the other hand, that would mean that there might be a big shock to agricultural incomes. So you would have to figure out other ways to support agricultural households.
Yes. Well, I don't know what if there is an answer to all of this, but thank you for explaining the situation to our listeners today. We do always appreciate your expertise. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
This was Professor Yang Jun-suk, and this was our special interview.
Get your local up-to-date news from Korea and abroad right here on Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine. Stay tuned.
It is now time for Skills 101. We have Jennifer here.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Before we dive into our topic, we're talking about games today.
Oh, games.
Arcade games, PC games, any board games.
Board games.
Mind games. Any games that you're into?
I'm not the kind of type who plays computer games.
Okay.
That's not me. But I enjoy playing board games. Like over Chuseok holiday, we plan to have a yunori game together with
the traditional
relatives.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Oh,
What
very
about
good.
you?
We are highly competitive. We love any and all kinds, whether it's with just a deck of cards, not gambling
card
per se
games.
though, like card games. Like, and then we do the Uno.
Oh,
we
Uno
do
is
Rumu
fun.
Cube. We do. I think. Da Vinci Code, is that the name of one?
yeah, Da Vinci
Yeah,
Code.
that one's
Yeah.
popular. And anything like with like numbers and like and our all-time favorite in our house, Clue.
Oh,
People like they really enjoy, the members of my family, like figuring out stuff.
Okay.
And like just sometimes the games go on and on.
Do
It's
you
brutal.
play in teams?
Oh no, it's all you're in it for yourself,
Oh,
for
okay.
bragging rights. Yeah, so who's on top?
Okay.
Yes.
So what does the winner get at the end?
Bragging rights. The feeling of saying, I am number one of the family. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay,
yes.
good.
What are we talking about today for Skills 101?
I'm really excited to introduce today's topic. We'll be
Yes.
tackling a crucial life skill that is negotiation.
Oh, this is important. Negotiations. Right,
Yeah.
right. This is something that everyone needs in their arsenal, right?
Yeah, whether you're working in a company or you're a student or
Yes.
you're just freelancing,
Sure.
we all need this skill.
Yes.
And we often think of negotiation as a win and lose situation very often. But maybe that's not the best approach because often people end up arguing instead of negotiating. Right?
So true. So let's start out by kind of maybe redefining what negotiation is then. Many people, as you say, they see it as a battle, like we talked about, game,
Yeah.
win, lose, but not necessarily so. So what's your take?
That's a common misconception. Negotiation isn't just about winning or losing. It's not about me. Yeah. It's about finding mutual satisfactory solutions that
Yes.
makes both parties happy.
Okay.
The goal should be collaboration, not competition. It's not a card game. Yeah.
Collaboration, not competition. Okay, we got to keep that in mind.
For example, I once had to negotiate a project timeline. Instead of pushing for my preferred deadline, I asked the team members what their concerns were.
Okay.
And it turned out they had a valid reason for needing more time. And we found a middle ground that worked for everyone.
Okay, so in theory, collaboration, it really sounds ideal. But how do we achieve it, like in reality, in practice?
Good question. A key approach is to show that you care and you truly understand the other party's interests, not
Okay.
only your own interests. When people feel heard and understood, they're more likely to be engaged in a constructive dialogue.
Yes.
Think about it like this. If you're negotiating with a supplier and you know they value long-term partnerships, you can propose a deal that benefits both in the short term and strengthens the relationship for future businesses.
So understanding the other side, their interest seems really important. So how do we use that information effectively then?
So focus on fair standards and invent options, come up with options for a mutual gain. Because very often in negotiation, the solution makes one party happy, but not the other.
So we often see that.
Yeah. So
Yes.
instead of arguing over positions, explore ways both sides can benefit.
Okay.
So this approach can lead to more creative and lasting solutions. For instance, when two companies negotiate a merger, they often find out that combining resources in unexpected ways can create new opportunities neither had considered before. So they put their heads together.
Yes. It does make sense what you're saying, but what about when there are really significant differences between the parties?
Oh, we see that, right? Embracing differences is actually an advantage in negotiation. Differences can lead to creative solutions that might not be so obvious if you only focus on similarities.
Okay.
The key is to see these differences as opportunities rather than threats or obstacles.
Okay.
For instance, in international negotiations, cultural differences may seem challenging, right? But they often bring fresh perspectives that lead to innovative solutions.
True.
There isn't just one correct answer in a negotiation.
Yes,
You gotta
yes.
remember that.
Yes. So I've heard that, this idea of building relationships before negotiating, that can actually make a major difference. So do you think it's true? What do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Building a relationship establishes trust, which is fundamental for successful negotiation. When trust is present, both parties are more willing to open up and share information and work together to find a solution. So I've seen cases where both parties built a strong rapport over a long period of time.
Okay.
This trust really allowed them to be more open about their needs and quickly find a solution, avoiding the usual back and forth.
But there might be a point where the negotiation, that phase, it gets kind of tough. And I've seen some people, they can become like super aggressive and like start attacking a counterpart or a different person rather than like addressing the issue. And it can get kind of ugly. So how can we better handle these types of situations?
Yeah, so difficult situations are inevitable. The best approach is to stay calm and focus on the interests, not the positions. It's natural to defend yourself and say nasty things, but that leads nowhere.
Yes.
You push and they push back and things get stuck and ugly. If things get heated, take a step back and then reaffirm the common goals. This can help diffuse tension and keep the negotiation on track. For example, if someone attacks you personally, redirect the conversation back to the problem at hand by saying, "Oh, I understand this is frustrating. Let's focus on how we can solve this together."
Well, these are really great insights, and I certainly hope that we can put this to practice. Any final thoughts?
Remember that negotiation is about collaboration, not competition. Focus on understanding the other side. Use fair standards and be open to creative solutions. Ask questions and find out what is important to them, not only to you. Yeah. So the more you practice, the better you will get. A great way to improve is by negotiating in a low-stake situations, like even asking for a discount at a store.
I don't know. Are you good at that? Because sometimes it's like I remember when I was younger, I remember my mom, when we came to visit like in Korea, she would just, very nicely, not pushy, ask for like a discount. But I used to get so embarrassed.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
To me, like, I think it's a cultural thing too. But like, I was like, oh, does that mean like, are we like not well off enough where like why are you asking for the discount? And then like it was
the
so
bargaining.
uncomfortable. The bargaining, the haggling, it was so uncomfortable. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to do it in the store. You can find another way.
Yes. There must be a different way.
So negotiation isn't just about getting what you want. It's about finding a solution that works for everyone involved, keeps everyone happy. So that's our goal. So let's focus on win-win outcome.
But as you were talking about this, I was thinking, Jennifer, this applies not just to like the workplace, probably let's just in like any relationship, this whole negotiating thing, whether it's like with your child or with your significant other, like to find out what the other person really wants and to find some kind of common ground. We can use it in everyday life.
The challenge is that people don't listen. They're so busy just talking.
That's true.
I do that as well. So I have to remind myself constantly.
Listen.
Listen.
So even for you sometimes have to tell yourself?
I have to constantly remind myself
to listen.
Especially with my close ones, like loved ones.
Loved ones, yes. Challenging. Yes. Well, thank you so much, and we will definitely check in with you next week.
Thank
you, Jennifer.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Everybody, this was Skills 101. Negotiating with your loved ones. I think that is an art form. Sometimes that takes extra patience because you are so tempted to kind of overpower the other party, whether it is your partner, whether it is a child or just anybody close to you. You kind of want to get a one-up on them. But, as Jennifer said, it doesn't have to be a win-lose kind of thing. It can be a win-win thing, can't it? Anyhow, so looking back at some of your comments, so the games, and a lot of the games that you mentioned, I noticed, are from like back in the day. And I love that, the fact that we can look back on our respective histories, our respective lives. And yes, some of them will date you. Like I have games like Sonic popping up here. Do you guys remember the whole, right now it's the Nintendo, whatever, it's like Switch, but before it used to be like a different iteration. And I remember like I was only allowed to play 1 hour per week when that was really hot when I was younger. So I remember like for the 6 days that I didn't play, I would kind of in my mind try to tell myself like, how can I get to the next level of the Mario? Right. How can I get to the next level? I only have 1 hour to play. How can I get to the next level? So I would kind of think of strategies before I even started playing. And I only literally got 1 hour per week, and the rest was just all lots of reading. But maybe that's why I'm here. I don't know. Should I hate my mom or should I thank her? I'm not sure at this point. Today, though, I do want to give a shout out to our staff. They do all the hard work behind the scenes. We have our producer, Cho Yoon-jin. We have our writers, Haley and Annie. And I'm your host, Catherine. I'll be back tomorrow. So for our final song today, how about this one? This is definitely a good one. Put Your Records On by Corinne Bailey Rae. Have a good one, everybody. Join us tomorrow. Bye.
Sat on my window and they told me I don't need to worry. Summer came like cinnamon, so sweet. Little girls double dutch on the concrete. Maybe sometimes we got it wrong, but it's alright. The more things seem to change, the more they stay the same. Ooh, don't you hesitate. Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your head down. Sapphire and faded jeans. I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your head down. You're gonna find yourself somewhere, somehow. Blue as the sky, sunburned and lonely, sipping tea in a bar by the roadside. Just relax, just relax. Don't you let those other boys fool you. Gotta love that Afro hairdo. Maybe sometimes we feel afraid, but it's alright. The more you stay the same, the more they seem to change. Don't you think it's strange? Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your head down. Sapphire and faded jeans. I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your head down. You're gonna find yourself somewhere, somehow. Drugs are more than I could take. Pity for pity's sake. Some nights kept me awake. I thought that I was stronger. When you gonna realize that you don't even have to try any longer. Do what you want to. Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your head down. Oh, let your head Sapphire and faded jeans. I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your head down. Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your head down. Sapphire and faded jeans. I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your head down. Ooh, you're gonna find yourself somewhere.
Your Bridge to the World. BEFM 부산 영어 방송.
부산의 축제 어디까지 즐겨보셨나요? 과거와 현재, 미래가 공존하는 항구도시 부산. 이곳 부산은 계절을 물들이는 다양한 축제로 늘 풍성합니다. 봄의 시작을 알리는 봄꽃 축제부터 부산의 여름을 만끽하는 바다 축제, 전 세계 영화인들이 모이는 부산국제영화제와 새로운 시작의 해맞이 축제까지. 부산의 축제는 우리의 열정을 가득 담고 있습니다. 바쁜 일상은 잠시 뒤로하고 특별한 시간을 선물 받는 바로 이곳 부산에서 우리의 삶은 축제가 됩니다. 축제로 하나 되는 부산, 여러분은 어떤 축제를 기다리시나요? 이 캠페인은 대선공익재단과 BFM 부산